Discover connection, awaken sacredness, become empowered. Join us for our show on Blog Talk Radio. Discover your spiritual gifts live.
Welcome to Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, show number 62. We're your hosts, Dave and
Vialet.
Our guest today is Shoshanna French. Shoshanna's work impacts on a soul level that shifts mind, body, and spirit. Her work provides more than just intuitive messages. A one-on-one session is an opportunity to discover the cause of anywhere you feel disempowered, stuck, or overwhelmed. Shoshanna utilizes coaching, energy work, mindset, intuitive development, and intuitive insight to help you shift at a soul level. The work is deep, practical, immediate, and for many clients creates transformative impacts that continue long after the session. Welcome, Shoshanna. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
Well, we're always curious. Where did you start with this? Were you intuitive as a child? Did you discover it later in your life?
I was certainly an intuitive child. However, when I was a kid, I was raised kind of in a more fundamental structured religion. And so we didn't call it intuition. We called it other things. So it wasn't until I was away at college at UNC in Greeley. There was a group of women when I was 18 that taught me, that kind of introduced me to the world of metaphysics. And prior to that moment, I had not had any exposure to metaphysics at all. They taught me how to meditate, how to read tarot, how to understand energy. And they gave me a word for this experience I'd had my whole life, which was intuition, but also psychic phenomenon. And it didn't have a negative connotation for them, which it had when I was a kid in the religion I grew up in. So that was kind of when it started. But it runs in my family and I've always been intuitive, but I got a lot more space and freedom to play with it after 18.
So what areas are particularly strong for you, or what areas started out where Shazam, you have the magic touch?
Gosh, that is such a different way to approach it than other people I talk to. I love your question, Dave. I would say that when I was a kid, I had a really strong sense of clairsentience, meaning like I could feel people. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't know what it was, but I could see things above people's heads when I was a kid. It helped me better understand how they were feeling. But it was pretty focused on clairvoyance and clairsentience. And then when I learned to read tarot, I took a tarot class when I was 18. And I did a reading for the teacher that was like your final test or whatever. And I laid the cards out in a Celtic cross, so 10 cards. And I picked up the very first card in the very center. And it was like someone started talking to me. And I was like, what is that? And so that kind of turned on my clairaudience. And now all 4 gifts are on. And I think it's probably just because that was 27 years ago. I just turned 45 on September 3rd. So
happy birthday.
Now for 20, now, as my friend, one of my clients, I say, you're just a baby. I don't feel like a baby, but I know that I am in some circles. But that 27 years ago, practicing on a pretty regular basis and now owning my company for almost 17 years, where I'm talking to people almost every day. Mm-hmm. Now all 4 of the clairs are kind of turned on. I can hear, feel, see, know, and like hear. So I can use all 4. Mm-hmm. In client work, most commonly, I see and then I hear. And then as I start talking to them, like knowings will come. And then I get these feelings in my body when energy shifts. I'm like, let's move on. That's shifted. So it's all 4 now. Firing on all cylinders, as it were.
Well, I'm curious about something because we were talking about the show and you said most of your work at this point is remote online. And with your clairvoyance and seeing things around people, does that work just as easily when you're working, say, on a Zoom call?
Mm-hmm. Some people, their clairvoyance is in the physical space.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mine has never been. Mine's always been mind's eye. So like for me, it's images that come into my mind, almost like a full-on movie. Like I can see images around people, but with my eyes closed. Occasionally I'll see stuff around people physically, but what I always tell people is physical proximity, it's energy, and energy doesn't require physical proximity. I mean, it does for certain things, like if you're getting like physical touch, and someone works hands-on, obviously. But for me in the work I do, physical proximity doesn't matter.
Well, I'm totally in agreement with you. I do 98% of my work remote with clients, and it works just fine. I do a lot of work with people's chakras and getting them repaired or tuned up, and I close my eyes and I see instantly the state of their chakras. So yeah, I totally agree with you on how you do that type of work.
Yep. I am like Vialet in that I do love, it is fun to do stuff in person. So I love leading retreats, and clients fly me out to them sometimes. And it's fun because I love people, but it's not required to do my work well, but it is fun to do it in person. So I just have to say that I'm with you a little bit, Vialet, that I do love in person, just like that physical connection is really fun, but it's not, thankfully for me, it's not required. So I can still see people, help people, but not necessarily have to be with them physically, like you, Dave.
Well, I can do both too. I think, I set up very sacred spaces in the center that are decorated and themed and hold a lot of energy. And I think they amplify my work. Not that I can't do it on Zoom, but I think it gets greatly amplified in the space. And when they're in the space, it helps them clear and release a little quicker because the space is kind of supporting that healing process or whatever's going on. And even our practitioners here, I love getting new practitioners because this accelerates their process of their gifts opening and them really tapping in because the space holds that, which is the only difference, right? We can do it remotely and we can do it in person, but sometimes it's nice to have that beautiful space. And when you do it on Zoom, you don't know what the space is on the other side. And you can set it through electronically, right? Through the electronics in the room. It's just not, it's easier here because it's already open and set and waiting for them. So, energy is the same and we're all learning that. I mean, COVID taught a lot of us a lot of things because people stepped out of their comfort zone during COVID and started doing things that they never thought they could do on Zoom and remotely. And it really did amplify a lot of people's work that have moved online that are now able to help people all across the world. And you talked a little bit about a lot of your clients are a little bit everywhere. And how does that, do you find language barriers? Is it different working with people in other countries? Are there things that you have to think about, differences from the United States to other countries that may come in? Have you found any of that shows up for you?
I think so a lot of the work I do is with entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs in other countries, there are just some differences. So, I have a lot of clients in Canada, and the process of how they run businesses is not different than how we run businesses here, but employment law is different there. And so employee and employment law. So that kind of stuff is like more the subtle coaching part of what I do. That is a little different. But I mean, I have clients in 26 countries, and what I find is that at the core of all people is the same desire, which is to be connected, more connected to themselves, more connected to the divine, more connected to their purpose. And so I have just found that regardless of the physical space that they're in and the place where they live, the country, the city, whatever, that they all want the same thing. So I haven't found that I had to adjust my work much. I do an opening prayer. Oh, I call it a prayer, but for people who are not very woo-woo, which I work with a lot of non-pretty woo people, business people and that kind of big corporations, leadership and organizations. I just say, I'm going to set an intention and I'll say this thing out loud, which to us would probably sound like a prayer, but to them just sounds like me speaking some words out loud. And I believe that I can shift the energy that they're in so that vibrationally we're aligned before we begin. And people are in all kinds of spaces. I have people in Costa Rica that are literally sitting on their deck with the jungle behind them. I have clients in the Caribbean and they got the ocean behind them. I have clients that are like sitting in their, big conference rooms with a bunch of people around a table, which is not necessarily like if I flip the camera around, since like we're on camera together right now, but if I flip the camera around, you would see the space I'm sitting in is much like the practitioner space you set for your space. That really matters to me. I love that space, but I do work. I've been flown places and done work other places where I can't quote unquote set the space in the same way. But still, no, I haven't found that I had to make a lot of adjustments for working with people in other countries. If they don't speak English as a first language, I am not a great fit because I'm working on learning Spanish, but I only speak English. So if I can't translate what I'm getting to them in a way that's easy, I've worked through translators, but that part's hard. That one, I would say that's an adjustment, but outside of that, I haven't had to make many adjustments.
So working in a business environment, because Dave and I both came from corporate, and we were talking about corporate stuff even before you came on today, just environmentally. How do you get business people and corporate people? How do you connect them to their intuition? I mean, how do you take the woo-woo out of it enough that they're open to listening to it, right? I'd love to know how you do that.
So it's a few different ways. So I'm really crazy practical. Like it's just actually for people who love this, for your listeners who love astrology, I am not an astrologist and I am not wouldn't even call myself what do they call that? A beginner astrologist. I'm just a fascinated by astrology person, to be really clear. However, I just found out from an astrologist I was working at that I have something called, I'm going to call it the wrong thing. In Elysium, something. I have 4 planets in one zodiac, which is Libra, and 3 of them are in the same house, and it's the house of purpose. I think it's like 10 or something. And so knowing that, with this guy explaining it to me, he said, your whole thing in life is about communication and explaining things in a way that land for people. So from an astrological point of view, like I was born into the perfect spot so that it makes it easy. However, on the other side is I'm just really practical. So in college, I was learning all about my intuition at this metaphysical bookstore. And then I go back into my studies, which are very critical thinking, not creative. I was an English major and a sociology major. And so it was read, digest, discuss, debate, write, think about really that side of the brain. And I couldn't figure out how those two sides met. And so it kind of started me on this journey of how do you connect these two sides? And so I could make the answer longer, but to answer your original question, which is like, how do you communicate to business people enough of the woo out that they hear it? In my world, intuition is not woo at all. Intuition is how our brains are designed. It's how our bodies work. They've done a ton of research in scientific laboratories about how our bodies are designed to scan the environment and pick up information that we can't pick up from our regular 5 physical senses. They haven't been able to recreate, ESP in the laboratory because like reading the backside of a card psychically is not how our intuition works. But where you can see intuition really work is inside of decision making. Intuitive decision making is highly documented. So that's the conversation I have with business people. It is rare that I meet someone, even the CEOs I've worked with of billion-dollar companies, for me to say to them, intuition, and have them go, I don't believe in that. They say things like, well, I had this experience once where I kind of knew something and I followed my gut and then it worked out, right? So it's rare that I meet people who don't get it. In an environment of like CPAs or lawyers, or when I teach people in the Department of Defense, the languaging has to change a little bit, because when you're talking to scientists or you're talking to, people in the military or you're talking to lawyers, languaging really matters. So instead of saying energy, which I would say to you guys, right? Like the vibe's off, I'll say things like, it feels weird in here. Doesn't it feel weird in here to you? And like, they get that. You just have to change the word. So, it's not a simple answer. It was a simple question, but not a simple answer. It is lots and lots of practice over the last 10 years and learning how to relanguage how I talk about intuition so that it lands for all people. Because the bigger vision I have is a world in which, kind of like how Oprah came and brought this conversation for authenticity into the world in a way that had never existed before, kind of like how Brene Brown is bringing, this conversation for shame and vulnerability out into the greater world. Like all of those things, like I kind of see a world in which people can talk about intuition in just a really practical way. And it's a conversation people have. So instead of, how EQ is talked about as a soft skill, that intuition doesn't have to be talked about as a soft skill. It's actually a hard skill. It's one that we all have. It's one we can all be taught. And then it's one that you can actually use and definitely has a place in every facet of life, but most especially in business. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here because I know you guys probably use your intuition in your business already, but for your listeners, if they're using their intuition with their clients, but they're not using their intuition in their business, they're missing a potential superpower to really hone in and grow their business if they're not using their intuition for themselves, for their business, very specifically.
Well, it's different, right? I have 3 master's degrees in business. I used to be a college professor. So I have a business mind because I spent years in fast growing startup. I understand business. I understand. But if I looked at my team here, I'm not the normal. Most people that step in and do a spiritual business don't understand business. And they're just doing this and they don't know how to connect the dots. So my goal has been to bring them on and coach them in a way that helps them learn the business side, because they don't understand the business side. They go out, they open their gifts, and then they decide, I'm going to go hang a shingle and I'm going to rent an office and I'm going to do this. And a lot of them fail because they don't understand the business. There's so much more to this. So I love the fact that you're combining it. And I love the fact that we're going into corporations and large businesses and blending that, which I think is beautiful. Because when I stepped onto this path, I told my husband, I said, I'll never be able to go back to the corporate world, because if they do a search on me, they're not going to hire me as a college professor or an HR person because of all the woo. They'd be like, ooh, right? But when we can blend that, I love that. So I'm excited and love hearing how you're doing that and able to do that for people. So how does our personal passions, right, and business, I think they have to align in some way. Is that what you're finding as well, is figuring out how their personal passions and their business align with their intuition to make that grow? You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. And
working.
And I was, by the way, for people who can't see, because we're just having the audio, I was literally emphatically like nodding my head the whole time you were talking, like, yes, 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 yes. I get so excited about it. I'm like, thank you. Exactly. Yes. So what I find is that I actually say there are 2 separate things. There is your personal mission, right? Like your personal purpose. And I know what my personal purpose on the planet is. And then there's the reason why our business exists. So we have that initial inspiration that has a starter business, and every business person I've talked to, whether they are in the spiritual realm of things or they, own a 31 flavors, like a Duncan Hines, doesn't matter, right? Like, or whatever, like that whatever it is they own, whether they own a brick and mortar, they own a B2B or a B2C kind of business, and then they have their personal purpose. I think the moment that you birth the business becomes a separate entity. Like it actually then exists without you. And it's not like it's going to go knock off a liquor store without you. It doesn't have a will without us. However, it is an energy that is separate from us. And I think a mistake a lot of business owners who are on the intuitive side make as they get really personally connected to the business in a way that they can't see it separate. So in spiritual business owners, what I find is they won't say no to clients. Like they won't start firing clients and changing the client types they have because they're here to do a spiritual thing and they shouldn't be doing that. Like they have to take on everybody that God, goddess, universe, source sends them. And that becomes problematic, as we know, because you can't be, if you're in business, you can't be something for everyone. It doesn't work like that. It's not effective. People don't know how to find you. And what I find in really more practical business owners is that they invented this business from a source of inspiration, like a download, transmission, whatever you want to call it, being inspired by. They get that moment. They are really in the why. It pushes them past the disbelief they have that it's possible to start the business, but then they go right into the how, and it moves them out of intuition and into their practical, logical side. And so what I often do with business owners is I just have them reconnect to the why, have them have an intuitive conversation with their business and go, oh, got it. Like I haven't talked to you since I originally started you. You have stuff to say about the goals and targets and the kind of clients and the kind of work I'm doing. And then have them check that against what's your own personal purpose? Why are you here on the planet? Your business may or may not directly be the thing that fulfills that. Sometimes it's hard to know. So if it isn't actually fulfilling your purpose, how can you work in your business different so that it is? And did something change? Like I had a woman recently who had started a business in her why. She was really inspired by it years ago. She tapped into it again and she was like, oh my God, like I'm actually not inspired by this business at all anymore. And it was like drudgery every day. And she said, it's not really fulfilling like my personal purpose anymore. And I was like, you're going to either have to really radically change it, give it away to somebody else to run, or you're going to have to close it. And so she thought on it for a month and did a bunch of like deep kind of soulful journey work for herself and journaled it and worked with some energy workers to kind of move some stuff around. And what she came to was like, I am not committed to giving it away to anybody else, but I'm willing to sell it. So she put it on the market to sell. And it was so in alignment that it sold like in 3 weeks, like so fast. And then now she's free to go and do what she wants. So I think that that's how we get people connected to their intuition, is recognizing that it's something they're already connected to, but they forget. Because we live in a society that really, as you guys probably know, it just is more interested in what we think, just way more interested in our thoughts, in our logic.
I love the idea that you don't have to serve every client, right? Because there's this idea in spiritual communities. Number one, I can't charge for my services because it's a gift and I'm supposed to give it away. And I'd love for you to talk about that. But there's also this other side of my clients. They came to me, so I have to help them. And you learn really quickly, at least I've learned, is I'm not here. I don't align with everybody. It's not what I'm doing. And it's okay to say, hey, I'm going to send you to this person that's better aligned to where you're going. So talk to us a little bit about that feeling that spiritual business owners have of, I need to give this away for free. And talk to us about why it's so important to figure out who your client is, and it's okay to fire clients.
Oh my gosh. Yes, please. Yes, please. Okay. So I would say 3 things about that. One, if you are someone who is spiritual, got training, ignited your spiritual gifts, and then decided to start offering your spiritual gifts to help others, just the same way as you would build a friendship circle with people you enjoy and feel really seen and known by and feel like they let you see and know them, your clients should be the same. It's actually no different. Your clients should be people that you would want to see outside of your work, that you would actually enjoy being with, that if you saw them in the grocery store, you wouldn't turn around and make a beeline for the opposite direction they're going. Like if that's your clients, you might want to evaluate who you're working with. Second, if you are a spiritual person and you know the law of attraction, and there's 12 universal laws, but we only ever talk about the law of attraction, but there's the law of reciprocation, there's the law of abundance, right? If you are a spiritual person and you believe in abundance, then why would you be concerned for being the thing for everyone? Like if you're just in receiving and it moves through, then of course, sometimes things move through, right? It's kind of like if you sit at a table at a restaurant and you're stuck in the corner with two other people and the waitress has to hand something to someone and then they pass it all the way down. That plate isn't meant for you. You know, it's meant for the person to your right. So you just go, thank you, because it came to you. And then you give it to the person it's meant for. To me, that's exactly the same thing we're talking about. I mean, I've had tons of amazing people. I mean, I've worked with clients that I had to sign NDAs for. I've worked with celebrities. I've worked with people who are big politicians, and I work with them for like a month and a half. And I'm like, oh, you know what they need is a therapist. And I look at my long list and Rolodex of people I trust, and I send them to the right person, not to me. So it's a willingness of trusting the abundance of the universe, that sometimes people come to you, but they're not meant for you. You're just meant to pass them on to the right person, just like that plate of food that's not yours. I didn't order the enchiladas. I'm going to pass them to the person I'm waiting for my fajitas. That's what's meant to be mine. So you just have to trust that. And then the third thing I would say is that if you've honed in on what your gifts are and what you really, really enjoy providing, you will immediately know you're not for everyone. Because I have a lot of different, I've been in this world for 27 years. I know a lot of intuitives. I worked for California Psychics for like a hot minute, which was the worst choice ever, but it taught me a lot. I was like, oh, got it. Yeah, that's what it feels like to hook for spirit. I'm not doing that. That does not sound like fun. I won't get into that. That's a conversation for another day. But my point is that once you get really, really clear, like, for example, people are like, what I need to know is how things are going to turn out. To me, that's predictive work. Predictive work is powerful for people who have that gift. I don't enjoy doing that because it doesn't necessarily align with my values. So why would they talk to me? I know that about myself. Oh, great. You want predictive psychic work. Okay, here are the 3 people I know that do that. If someone comes to me and says, my father passed away and I've really been wanting to get complete with him, can you help me talk to him? No, because I don't do that kind of work. If you are really interested in facilitating the greatest healing for somebody else, when they come to you and ask for something that you don't feel 100% aligned with, or doesn't feel like your gift, then find them the right person. Because the moment that the enchiladas are out of your hands and you pass them on, then your hands are open and ready for the next plate. So to me, it's like you're just moving the energy through so that you can have what really is actually meant for you. There are a lot of things that I could do, but that doesn't mean that they are the thing that I'm here to do,
I love that. What about these people that think you should give it away for free? Get that a lot. Come on, you have gifts. You should be doing this for free. I have lights to pay.
So here's what I'll say about that, because again, this is like a really deep conversation about mindset, how people relate to money, what people think money is, how they think money, what it is, and the corruption they think that money creates, and how money is the corruption, and we should all be like all of that stuff. I'm not getting into all that because that's a much deeper conversation. Suffice to say that every gift is a spiritual gift. So whether you're like freaking amazing with numbers and you can just figure out people's tax issues in 30 seconds, if that's your gift, no one questions if a CPA charges you, but that's their spiritual gift. Why would their spiritual gift be more valuable than your spiritual gift, which is being able to close your eyes and see the dysfunction in their chakra system, which leads to unhappiness in their relationship and a disconnect from the people who matter? Like, how do you evaluate that one spiritual gift is more important than the other? That sounds like you're doing the job of somebody else.
Or like doctors or healers. When's the last time you went to see a doctor for free? Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a place in the energetic realm for what some spiritual people call tithing or offer, or like charity, if you want to use that word, or there's lots of different words for it, but is there a place, if that's your value, then yes, do it. Right? When like I have causes that in my life are really important, and I give to those, right? Right now, the resource I have the least amount of is time. So right now I can't give time to those. I wish I could. I don't actually have time. That is actually a breakdown I'm working on getting more time back, but it's of all the resources we have access to, that's the resource I have the least of at the moment. So right now what I do is I give money to them because that's the resource that I have in abundance. So that's the one I share. It's easiest. I have easiest access to it. So if you're someone who has a spiritual business and you get somebody who can't afford you, like clearly cannot afford you, I would say in that situation, tap in. Like, did you get sent them and they actually need help, but it's not actually what they think they need you, but what they actually need probably is a therapist. And there are therapists that don't cost anything because you can get insurance through the state. In Colorado, you could get access to mental health for free if you needed it. Does it sound like what they need is actually someone to help them redo their, their CV, their resume? Great. Then there are services in Colorado for free, by the way, that you can go and get. It's called SCORE. It's the Association of Retired Corporate Executives. You can go into Denver and find that for totally free. So it's not that the help doesn't exist for free. So sometimes they were sent to you because you are aware of help they could get that's for free. Doesn't mean that you have to offer it for free. There are people that get sent to me sometimes that I'm very clear the universe sent them to me, and they're my tithe, right? Like I've offered discounts to people because it felt right. And I don't know why it felt right. And in no less than 3 times in the last, probably 9 months when that happened, like in the moment it felt right. And their bestie is some, schmuckety schmuck in some big corporation who's like, I heard you helped my friend. And I'm like, yeah, they really needed some help. And they're like, I'd like to pay you for the time you gave them. Okay. Like, because that felt right. And sometimes that doesn't come back. Sometimes what comes back is, I'll find myself traveling and my phone isn't working and I need a freaking ride to where I'm going. And some car pulls up and goes, hey, I'm an Uber. Did you call me? Nope. Can't get my Uber to work. I'll take you. And then you can just pay me. Okay. Like the universe works it out. And it's what one of my friends, Jennifer Uritzo, says all the time. She said, if you're focused on being in control, which to me, when you take too little money for the gift that you have and you're not making it so that your life works, it's fine if you're making enough money to make your life work. But if you're feeling bad about charging and you can't afford to pay your bills, that to me is you're trying to be too in control of something, which is none of your business. You don't need to be in people's wallets. That's actually none of your business. How much they make, what they can afford, let them worry about that. And you focus on what you need to make your life work. Like, you need to be in the world of orchestration, not in the world of control. I always say this, it's like orchestration to me is if you have like a symphony, right? The person who's conducting the symphony is not in the back ensuring that every instrument is in tune. Why would they do that? That's not their job. That would be weird. If you were like a violinist in a symphony and the conductor came back and started tuning your instrument, that would be weird. Like, if you're the orchestrator, meaning that the universe is pulling for everything working out in your favor, then you should be the orchestrator and stop being in other people's business. That to me is the reason why I'm okay with charging what I charge, because if people can't afford it, great, they'll find somebody else who's more in their budget. I'm not going into the, Mercedes Benz or the Tesla to test drive a car because I'm not in the market for $100,000 car right now. If I'm in someday, I'll drive into that, I'll test drive one of those. But why would I test drive a Tesla and then complain that they cost $65,000? That's weird.
I love that.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a break here. We have a message from Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Violet Rain, Master and Teacher of Sacred Priesthood in the Mystery Schools here at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. This is a program that I offer about once a year. We take on students to start this program. It's an 18-month program, which means there are 13 classes. We teach a class once a month, and we skip months with holidays. And on this path, men and women can come together to become sacred priests and sacred priestesses of the Order of Melchizedek. The Order of Melchizedek is the oldest sacred priesthood on this planet. It was mentioned in the Bible and still exists today. This is about walking a path of beauty, sacredness, and service. It's about learning how to be a magical creator of your own life and using the universal mysteries to create whatever type of life that you're looking for. This path is filled with magic, about learning prosperity, about creating, about sacred geometry, about Kabbalah, about learning about the ascended masters, the archangels, the elementals, including dragons and fairies and unicorns and the mermaids. It brings all that universal wisdom together to create a way for everyone to have that joyful and abundant life that they've always wanted. I hope that you will check out our website under classes and look for Mystery School or look for Sacred Priesthood and find out more about these classes and what we have to offer. I look forward to seeing you in class, and I hope to see you really soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.
Well, welcome back to Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. Our guest is Shoshanna French, and wow, what a powerhouse in terms of talking about her intuitive gifts and how she helps people. So I've got to ask you the question, you talk to a lot of corporations or a lot of entrepreneurs. What are some of the, I'll say, the big two or big three issues that they're facing right now, especially with the pandemic?
So pandemic wise, I would say pre-pandemic and pandemic, it's the same thing, really.
Okay.
Which is these three things. One is uncertainty. So pre-pandemic, people felt like things were pretty certain. And then when there's kind of like a global thing that makes how life is actually pretty uncertain, more obvious and a little less arguable with, it feels like it is more uncertain. In business, the speed with which the pandemic caused a lot of us to have to pivot and change what we were doing, the speed was I think, a little more rapid, obviously, than normal. However, uncertainty in the market is a thing that all business owners have to deal with. When I started doing this 17 years ago, what I did was weird. Like, I would go to networking sessions and people would be like, what did you say you do? An intuitive. But that's not so weird anymore. Like, I go, I'm intuitive. People are like, ooh, tell me more about that. It's not as weird anymore. I don't know what happened. I am deeply grateful for whatever changed, but I don't totally know what changed, but something did. The second thing that people who are either in like corporate leadership or own their own business, they do what we all do, which is they look for experts to help them grow their business in the way they want, and they hire the wrong people. And they put all of their trust and money, or just money, into someone, and they ignore their intuition and they trust somebody else more than they trust themselves. So they end up getting in, and this happened a lot during the pandemic, they end up getting into situations where the help they thought they were going to get didn't net the result they wanted it to. And so the way I would say that is like people not trusting themselves, trusting others more than trusting themselves. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't trust people. I think people misunderstand that when I say that sometimes. I mean, trusting yourself and using that inner knowledge, wisdom, GPS, intuition, whatever you want to call it, using that to navigate who to trust in the world of experts. You should always be trusting yourself first, even when you hire an expert. And then the third most common thing I find is like being restored to a sense of being inspired by the business instead of getting lost in the busyness and the doing of it. So intuition can be used, as you guys know, intuition can be used to navigate back into what inspired you to start it, what will actually help you grow it, and how to adjust for changes in the marketplace, whether it's pandemic or, people are moving away from brick and mortars and ordering things online. How do you adjust for that change in the marketplace? So all of that can happen inside of your intuition, can communicate what you need to do about that.
Well, something in my history, my dad was a management consultant for A.T. Kearney in Chicago. And so I picked up a lot by osmosis on effective business running. And it seems to be one of the most critical phases of a business. You have some person, they're really smart in a certain area, and they decide to open the doors. And it grows and it grows, and they hit about the 20 people level. And suddenly their expertise in the area that caused the business to be started is not sufficient to be there for all the areas of expertise needed to run a business that's at 20 people and growing. And how do you work with the people to get them to say, yes, there are things that I know and love, and there are some things that I really need to hand off because that's not part of my skill set?
I love what you're saying. How I talk about that with people is the difference between data-driven decision-making and intuitive decision-making. So my hope, obviously, is that if I come upon, which I had a client who had 5 employees, and she owned a template-based website company for therapists called Therapy Sites. And she went from 5 employees to 40 within 5 months. So she grew very fast, very fast.
Yeah.
And, you know, she needed all of a sudden, because she had so many clients, all of a sudden she needed, you know, tech support. And the way that she ran her business before was that she would have a daily, you know, whole business meeting. And it was everybody who was an employee. They would sit, talk, like, and she had a brilliant way that she communicated with everybody. She's super wicked smart girl.
Mm-hmm.
But when she went to 40, you can't have an all staff meeting every day for 40 people. Like, that's not humanly possible. So one of the things her and I talked about was, what would intuitive decision-making look like inside of managing a group that big? And so what she learned to do was, one, trusting herself about where the business needed her attention. She would have what I call an intuitive business meeting with herself every morning.
Mm-hmm.
So she would sit out, get some paper, use automatic writing, or what I call intuitive ideation for the less woo people. They like that better. But they take out a piece of paper and they would just tap into the business and they would say, where does the business need my attention today?
Mm-hmm.
And then she would be guided where to focus. And that helped her empower, like steward the expertise of the people in the business who knew the things she didn't know. But it also had her recognize that there were things she really had to let go of. And if she didn't, then the business was going to shrink back to what she could hold kind of in her hands.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way. I'm working with another client right now in Toronto, and he owns a boiler company and he has about 100 employees, and they're going kind of this next level, and they're bringing in another, you know, they're now working with another manufacturer and they're repping another product, and it's requiring kind of all this retraining of some of his staff, and some of them don't want to do it. And so now he's like in this position where, how do I move people around in their best position? So I had him take out the org chart and do the same thing, an intuitive ideation session with the org chart. Like, how can you move people around? And once he did that, he saw gaps. He was like, well, where my expertise gaps are here. I'm going to need to hire someone who is good at managing teams of 20 in sales. And my other gap is here. I need someone who can manage people, like a group of 10 people in service, like in the service industry part of his, you know, business. So that's how I work with people when they get to that position where they grow, right? Or they're working with a larger team. It's really like, how do you use your intuition to find the experts who actually know the things you don't know?
Mm-hmm. In your mix of clients, how many come to you because things are going good and they want them to go better, versus the people who say, I'm in disaster mode, help me, help me, help me?
If we were talking 3 years ago, that would be 90-10 disaster to things going well. But I realized I don't love triage. It's not my favorite. And for people who are not familiar with the word triage, that's like basically when someone has a gaping wound and you're like trying to make sure they don't bleed out. Like, that's not my favorite kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I really changed the kind of people I worked with and the way I talk about what I do. And so now I would say probably 80% of the people I work with are actually already successful, and the kind of things they say. And this is both inside of the individual work I do, as well as the more kind of group programs with entrepreneurs. They say things like, you know, we did really well. We've grown to the state at which I can see, and we've used all the things I know, all my tools. And now we've reached the stage where it's beyond where my skills are. I don't know what to do next to grow to the next level. So that's the majority of people that I'm working with now. And it's fun for me because they're just having different conversations than people who are in duress or in challenge. Now, to be clear, of course, if you're in a space of growth and growing the next level, you're dealing with challenges, but they're in a place where the challenges are not causing them to be at fear of closing the doors or concern of needing to fire people. These are people who are like, no, I want to grow to the next level. How do I do that? And that goes for the people I work with, not inside of business, just inside of their relationships or marriages or with their health or whatever. Like mostly I work with people who are, not under duress. They're really wanting to grow, but they're in a place of stability, if that makes sense.
Well, there's a company I wish that would contact you. Who knows? Maybe they'll pick this up intuitively. So we have the classic restaurant here in Denver, Casa Bonita, and it's been closed for the pandemic, and it's an icon, and it's been made fun of in the South Park cartoons, and the South Park producers love it, and they're buying it out of bankruptcy court, and they're talking about transforming a little bit about what it is, because they said, and it's always been true, you don't go there for the food, you go there for the entertainment value, and they would like to turn that around a little bit and say, we can bring the food up to par too. And I'm just crossing my fingers that they have the talents and skills, or can obtain them through professional management to go in there and do it right, so it doesn't last for 3 months and then close the doors again.
Kind of a fun
Yeah.
project.
Well, speaking from someone who grew up, I grew up here. I was born in Colorado and grew up here. Casa Bonita is an icon, but it's gross. Like it's needed like a scrape and scrub for a hot minute. And any of us who've been there know that.
Steam cleaning for the whole place.
I really hope they flip all the lights on and move everything back and just stand appalled at like the crunchiness of it and go, okay, so let's scrap some stuff. Let's scrub some things. Because, like if they brought the food up to Taco Bell level, that would be good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, ew. But I love it. Like it's in my family. My mom was a waitress there. My dad's best friend was the Tarzan guy. My dad was in the suit, right? The gorilla suit. So like it's like people, my husband, his first job was as a dishwasher there. So like I have a vested interest in it reopening because they're like, it's got a special place, but.
Well, I'll tell you my funny story. So I moved to Denver in 81, and I came out about a month before my family moved out to start work at Martin Marietta. And I'm looking through the phone book and the yellow pages, just looking for interesting restaurants. And I see Casa Bonita. I was so naive. I call them up and I said, do I need reservations? And they said, well, I don't think so. We seat over 750.
I will say that I hope they don't change the recipe for their sopapillas, because those are the bomb. Those don't need any improvement. Matt Gehring, right? Isn't that his name?
Yes.
The South Park dudes, like, don't change that recipe. That is the thing they got right.
Absolutely.
We need to send this to Matt Garrett. We need to find a contact and go, you need to listen to the end of this interview because we've got a plan for you.
The one thing I would tell them, so I like, not to be deep about it, but like really not just about Casa Bonita, but this goes for like everyone who owns a business and they feel like they're starting over after the pandemic, which is basically what's happening in this case. Like the first thing there is to do is to vision a future where it's all worked out and like feel into that energy. And then every decision you make about, for them, decor, food, all of that, but like really any part of your business, feel into that future where it all sorted out. And like, ask yourself, does that feel in alignment with that or out of alignment? And make decisions that way. I worked with a company who is closing their doors after 15 years in business. And she had to really like, does that feel right? Like, is that in alignment with my vivid vision of the future 10 years from now where I'm fully retired? And closing it felt right to her. But that was a hard decision to make. There'll be some decisions inside of Casa Bonita that will not be hard to make, such as replacing the carpet and cleaning the plastic, stuff. But there'll be some things that will be harder, I think, like, do you take the cheese factor out or not? Right? It is cheesy, but that's part of what it's real, real, I don't know, kind of like what it's like what brings people to it is that it's kind of cheesy and over the top, but that's like, it's such an 80s thing, right? Because I loved it. I was born in 76. So in 81, when you came here, is about the age we would start going once a year. We went to Casa Bonita once a year for someone's birthday, whether it was mine or one of my cousins, every year, in Bart's Cave or whatever.
Yeah. Black Bart's.
Black Bart's. Thank you. Yeah. Exactly. Anyway.
Next to the Puppet Plaza.
Exactly.
That's really awesome. Well, if people want to contact you, they want to work with you, they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
I would say that if you are like, I don't know if I want to work with her, but I want to know more about my intuition, go to the website, simplespirit.com, take the intuitive blueprint. It's a test that I have that trains people how to trust their intuition. I have a very particular way I teach people how to tap into their intuition that is very practical. So if you're like, not sure if you want to work with me, but you want to know more about intuition, do that. If you're like, I know I want to work with you, I would recommend that you go right to the website, click on schedule. You'll see one-on-one sessions. If you're an entrepreneur, I have open training sessions about the intuitive entrepreneur every month. Those are free. It's kind of like the opportunity to learn about what I offer for entrepreneurs and the program that's a group program. But that's what I'd recommend. Website, take the test, go to the website, schedule an appointment, or come and check out the open training session. And if you're just wanting to follow me, Simple Spirit on Facebook or Shoshanna French Stokes on Instagram. I'm there all the time.
I love that. I think I'm going to send your open training around to all my practitioners here at the center that are new business owners that could really use some support and help. And I think that would be great. So thank you for offering and doing that.
You're welcome.
And thanks for being on the show. This has been a blast. It's been so much fun. And I hope you come in and I get to meet you in person sometime since you're...
I would love to. I would love to come check it out. I love spaces that are set up for healing. And so I will definitely come check out your guys' space.
I love that. I love that.
Well, thank you very much, Shoshanna, for being here. And thank you for all our listeners. Please stay with us for messages from several of our practitioners at DYSG. They follow this. Have a great week and take care.
I am Lisa Laney, two-time international best-selling author, teacher, intuitive artist, reader, and healer at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. I am a very creative, artistic person who has been an intuitive empath my whole life. As a child, I was always aware of energy. I could detect shifts as people entered the room, which I thought all people could do. I didn't realize I was an empath until much later in life. I have studied various modalities, attended several retreats to peel back layers of childhood experiences to create a toolbox I use to navigate this world with intention. I am now pairing my intuitive gifts with my creativity to live an intentional life and empower other women to shine their brightest light, to manifest an abundant life with creativity and intention. If this resonates with you, join me at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts the first Thursday of each month at 6:30 at my Women's Intention Play Shops. The focus of each class varies on a different intention to heal, inspire, and empower each of you with a simple art project. In this class, we set the intention into what you create, so when you bring it home, you are reminded of what you are manifesting or releasing each time you look at it. This keeps the energy moving, which helps you create a more empowered version of yourself. If you prefer one-on-one time, I offer intuitive tree readings. You simply draw me a tree any way you feel guided. Coupled with your intention, we edit the tree so you have a visual of how you want to create a life of joyous empowerment. If this is calling you, I can be reached at 720-257-9441 or at lisaelaney.com. Tap into your inner magic to create an amazing toolbox of your own by joining me, Lisa Elaney, at Discover Your Spiritual Gift.
Hi, my name is Heather Nichols. I'm a soul journey coach and the owner of Soulful Essence and Wellbeing. For the past several years, I've been on a quest to fulfill my soul purpose of healing my past so I may learn to love myself unconditionally. I want to show others how they can do the same thing for themselves. My journey officially began in 2015. I became a Reiki master teacher to be a conduit of healing for myself and others. and I've always had an interest in hypnosis and self-development. And I finally stepped forward in my passion and found a program that helped me release negative emotions that were keeping me stuck in my past. I became a certified practitioner in this wonderful program and later studied Akashic records and many other healing modalities. I'm beginning my new class series starting in March, and this class is for people who are ready to release emotional trauma and blocks from their past. This can be from past lives or this life. During this class, we'll explore what impact anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt has in our lives, how we react to people and situations because of our state of mind, why it's important to forgive ourselves and others. Then it's time to release. And we'll use time techniques to release anger and sadness, a guided meditation to release additional negative emotions, and I'll be giving you a workbook so that you can journal about your experiences. The class schedule is from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. on the following days: Saturday, March 14th, Saturday, April 11th, Sunday, May 24th, Saturday, June 13th, Sunday, July 19th, Saturday, August 15th. And you can register at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, Facebook, Meetup, or Eventbrite, or at Soulful Essence and Wellbeing on Facebook. You can also register on my website at Soulful Essence, the letter N, wellbeing.com/classes. I look forward to seeing you in my class.
Hello, my name is Trina Schneider, and I am a spirit medium and intuitive reader. I also offer angelic Reiki and crystal healing. I was born an empath and have seen and heard spirits since I was a little girl. For many years, I ignored my gifts, but knew I was meant to be a healer. I started my journey doing private yoga sessions, and yoga helped me to reconnect with my mind, body, and spirit. I was then led to an intuitive mentor and took her classes to find out who I was and what my spiritual path should be, never thinking it would lead to a complete career change after being a hairstylist for 30 years. My spiritual path is a never-ending journey of healing myself and helping others. I consider my readings to be sacred and use prayer, meditation, and call upon my ancient Puebloan ancestors, angels, and other guides. In my readings, I view your energy through a rose. I connect you to your relevant past lives, bring in messages from your spirit guides, angels, and ancestors. I read the layers of your aura through your chakras to uncover blocks, bring in clarity, guidance, and direction for your life path. I do in-person readings at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts and remote readings over Zoom. To book your readings with me, please call or text me at 720-334-7754 or contact the center. I look forward to meeting you real soon.
Discover connection, awaken sacredness, become empowered. Join us for our show on Blog Talk Radio.